Hi, Credit Kristi here. This is video 3 of our 4-part series on the psychology of money and those things that trip you up. Hey, welcome to video 3. I'm so glad you're with me here. In this video, I'd like to talk about metering and categorizing. What the heck does that mean? But it has an actual effect on our budgets. So I don't know about you, if you are not following a household budget, I want to encourage you to do so. I know it feels difficult and it probably feels like homework, but actually seeing our take home and our outflow on what we pay for in black and white can have a huge impact on your spending and ultimately have a positive impact on your savings. So when we follow a budget, part of what we do is we are categorizing, right? A budget is a set of functions of where your money is going. So we work really hard, we get this money, where does your money go to? So we've got our fixed costs, which is like usually our housing, our rent or our mortgage, and our car loan, something along those lines. So if you have student loans, personal loans, something like that, it's a fixed cost each and every month. And then those things that we consume. So everything else is kind of a variable cost and it changes from month to month. So you would agree that your gift giving expenses are much higher in, say, December than it might be in March or April. So on that note, what I'd like to share is metering. Metering, think of like a car meter, right? Whether you pay in coin or you slide your debit or credit card in there, you think first about how long you're going to be parked in front of that meter to know how much you pay for. So metering becomes very difficult inside of a budget because our categories are kind of smushed. Right? So when we used to be able to pay everything in cash, think of what like maybe grandma used to do or how Dave Ramsey teaches. Dave teaches about the envelope system, right? Actually putting cash dollars every single month designated towards something specific. Kind of like the old jar system. Maybe grandma had different jars set up, and this one was savings, and this one was tithing. This one was house cost, food cost, clothing cost. So we've got to kind of try to have our minds go back old school like that. But what's so difficult is we pay so many things on auto pay or on credit cards, it all kind of gets smushed together. So that's why following a budget will make your outflow make so much more sense for you, and then you can actually start seeing where you need to cut. Maybe if you're finding yourself going out to restaurants twice a week, maybe you need to come back and just do it once a week, or maybe go to a place that's a little bit less costly if you like the experience of going out until you get some of these other bills paid off. So that way you don't keep putting things on a credit card to where your credit card balances are increasing. And again, those categories really are important because in our mind, we have to measure these different outflows, and that's why a budget actually in paper form can really help you, because that metering gets all messed up in our brains. We're not computers, right? We actually are able to do quick calculations, but when things are all put on one bill for that credit card or several credit cards, it's difficult, if not impossible, to really meter like you would if you were putting coins in for the 2 hours you're going to be parking in front of that meter. So being able to track it better, and that's why I do love the thought of Dave Ramsey's envelope system, although putting that into play current day is quite difficult. So my encouraging words to you is write it down in a budget. So that way, even though you may not have physical envelopes, you can allocate that money. I was speaking to a friend earlier this week. He's got lots of kids at his home, and they have a budget of $400 a week towards food. And then as he's telling me this story, he's saying, and every single week we surpass that budget. I said, well, you're going to have to increase that budget if that's what's constantly happening and take away from some other place, or find a way to make 400 work. So maybe have different kinds of meals, maybe like larger casseroles or pastas, or something along those lines where the cost per head for each meal costs a little bit less. Then I learned they go out to eat twice a week. And when you've got a lot of kiddos that you're feeding at a restaurant, well, that becomes a costly event. So maybe it's a once a week celebration. Maybe it's that family Friday night out rather than having it a little bit more often so that you can peel back those costs. Because what's a budget if you can't follow those numbers? You're just going to be making yourself wrong every week for not even coming close to accomplishing that. So I hope that the takeaway here for you is that metering is a very important aspect of where we allocate our money, and what makes it difficult is not being able to really truly separate it unless you see it on a budget because of the way we pay typically through auto pay and credit cards. So I hope your takeaway is start writing it in a budget so you can actually see where your money is going. And then when you get shocked about how much outflow is happening, you can start tweaking some adjustments so that way you don't have more going out than what's coming in. And that, my friends, is how you start growing your savings and start lowering that balance that you might have on a credit card. Thanks so much for being with me.